Mogeko Castle, an RPG Maker horror adventure game released by a Japanese user named Deep Sea Prisoner in 2012. It's about a high school girl named Yanaka who finds herself in a castle full of adorable cat creatures that all want her dead. This game has seen a varied release history over the past 2 years. The current version as of this video is 1.12. This version sports better visuals, typo fixes, bug fixes, and additional content over the past versions. This is the version I will be reviewing. I came across this game around the same time I discovered Space Funeral. Considering how good that game was, does this one hold a candle to it? Let's find out.
As the title screen suggests, this game has a very cutesy art style despite being a horror game. The title screen is actually really nice. There are custom graphics for each option so it doesn't look like most generic RPG Maker title screens. The very first thing you'll see after the title screen is a trigger warning that the game contains more than a few scenes of violence and grotesque imagery. The game begins with a yellow cat creature telling a bedtime story to someone in a bed. The game then fades to black and we're introduced to a sleepy girl named Yanaka taking the train home. She soon wakes up to find herself getting off at the wrong train station, one she's never heard of before. Leaving the train station, you'll find a lot of notices that appear to be extremely obsessive with things like high school girls and a meat called prosciutto. Soon enough, you'll make your way into the woods where you'll meet with a strange yellow creature called a Mogeko. Turns out, despite being cute, these things are perverted murderers that will sexually assault and murder any girl they see. Trigger warning, this game deals with rape. And it's a lot less subtle about it than Yumeniki was, so be warned if you might find that sort of thing offensive. After running away from the Mogekos, Yanaka ends up at a castle. With nowhere else to run, she enters, but not before stumbling across the bloody carcass of a dead Mogeko. You can choose not to enter the castle, but doing this will result in getting a bad ending. Like many visual novels or novel games, such as Corpse Party, this game has a number of alternate bad endings that you can unlock by performing a certain action or selecting a certain dialogue choice. Gameplay in this game doesn't really amount to anything more than walking around and interacting with NPCs. You can run by holding the shift key, but as of version 1.12, you now run by default without having to hold anything. You can also find and collect items such as prosciutto, red peppers, and porn of all things. All of which don't do anything, they're simply there either as a joke or for no reason. You'll occasionally find key items you'll need to access certain areas, but other than that, the items don't really serve any other purpose than being looked at. This game is divided into chapters, and the first chapter begins as you enter the castle. Each following chapter will begin as you reach another floor of the castle. Between chapters, Yanaka will have flashbacks that explore some of her backstory involving her brother, which eventually gets tied back to the present day plot. Since there's really nothing to the gameplay, this is one of those games you play purely to enjoy the story. So, let's continue looking at the story. Upon entering the castle, Yanaka is greeted by a bunch of thirsty Mogekos who want some high school pussy. She fools them into getting into an argument over who gets to rape her first, causing a fight to break out amongst them. Some of the writing here just makes me laugh. Poop, what? There's some segments in this game where you'll have to find a hiding place from the Mogekos. Picking the wrong one, however, will lead to a game over. This is one of the annoying things in this game. It's disgusting amount of trial and error. I'll get more into that later, though. Yanaka meets up with a Mogeko who explains to her that the only way out is to get to the top of the castle. He then gives her a knife so she can kill Mogekos if she ever needs to. Can you imagine a little girl like this stabbing and killing something that looks like this? Yanaka's uncomfortable with it at first, but as a dynamic character, this changes throughout the course of the game. To show this, her profile image on the pause screen actually starts to change, which is a really cool detail. In many of the rooms of the game, you'll be able to find, and hilariously enough, get porn. This being scattered throughout the game really emphasizes the Mogeko's sick addiction to stimulating themselves. This game is really messed up. The second chapter begins as you reach the second floor. It's here where you'll encounter the game's first chase sequence. This is probably the only bits of the game that have some actual gameplay. You'll have to quickly navigate hallways to escape a horde of Mogeko. Sometimes these parts can get really frustrating as they require a lot of trial and error. Went down the wrong hall? Well, too bad. Game over. Start over. Open the wrong door? Game over. Start over. This is probably my one complaint about the game. It's not overly bad as dying will restart you at frequent checkpoints so you don't lose much progress for taking the wrong turn, but it's still annoying nonetheless. This floor is where things start to get really depressing. Exploring this floor, you'll find many dying Mogeko sick in their beds, all of which are troubled by the things they've done or they're aware they're gonna die and they're really scared of it. On this floor, you'll find a book that explains how certain Mogekos are defects and have the ability to think differently than the others. Upon learning this, Yanaka is thrown in a prison cell as as no one in the castle is allowed to know about the defect Mogekos and how they rebel. In the prison, Yanaka meets with a green, scarred Mogeko. He explains that he was thrown in for being a defect and is set to be executed. The defect Mogeko agrees to help Yanaka escape, given that she can find them a way out of the cell. From this point on, defect Mogeko joins your party and will explain to Yanaka the history of the castle throughout the game. A lot of what he has to say is pretty damn interesting, and the chemistry between the two characters works really well. Defect Mogeko leads you to his friend who helps you get to the next floor. It's here that you'll encounter Mogeko for the first time. Yeah, her name is only differentiated by a hyphen in the middle of Mogeko. They even make a joke about this in the game. She's probably the most messed up character you'll find in this game. Like everything else in this game, despite looking cutesy as hell, she's even more bloodthirsty than the Mogekos. She tortures and crucifies the Mogekos for fun and soon becomes obsessed with skinning Yanaka alive. The game gets pretty graphic and gruesome around here. The following hallway is littered with bloodied, crucified corpses of Mogeko. I'm trying to be as vague as I can with the plot so I don't ruin any of it. It may seem like I'm just explaining the whole story, but trust me when I say I'm leaving out every crucial detail. After escaping from Mogeko, you'll end up in her bedroom where she keeps another one of defect Mogeko's friends nailed to a cross. He tells Yanaka there's a hidden passage to the next floor under Mogeko's bed. Yanaka and defect Mogeko enter the passage and advance to the next floor. The next floor has a hospital in which defect Mogeko will explore in order to find a hidden arsenal of weapons. This is definitely the most depressing area of the game. There's dying Mogeko left and right, questioning their very existence. This place reminds me a lot of the hospital on Dot Flow, as visually it's very similar. But at the same time, it also reminds me of the hospital in Silent Hill, as this is the one part of the game where you'll most frequently find a series of keys in the shape of various items to solve minor puzzles, just like the Silent Hill games. Warning, there's a jump scare in this room right here. It's not a huge one, but it's still pretty cheap. When Yanaka peeks out of the door, you'll get a glimpse of a terrible mutant monster. This is why defect Mogeko is seeking weapons in order to fight this thing. He ends up getting a rocket launcher, which plays out in a pretty funny scene later in the game. As you approach the end of the game, you'll encounter Mogeko, another character with a name that sounds identical. This one has a lowercase m. Go figure. He's the king of all the Mogekos, and when you meet him, shit goes down. I can't even show this part of the game at all without spoiling a whole lot, so trust me when I say the plot gets pretty damn deep at this point. Let's just say a whole lot of shit happens, which causes Yanaka to be a little more than upset. She ends up escaping the castle and going home, just to run away again because of her relationship with her brother, which again, I will be vague about in order to avoid spoilers. Yanaka goes back to the castle in a rage and decides it's time to put an end to King Mogeko's reign once and for all. At this point, you'll come to the Door of Truth. From here, you may have either one or two options, the Path of Paradise or the Path of Falsehood. Typically, at this point, you'll only have the option to pick the Path of Paradise, but you can unlock the other option if you beat the game without killing any Mogeko, or if you reload a save point at this moment after getting a regular ending. The Paradise option will give you the normal ending, which involves a psychotic Yanaka killing Mogeko and King Mogeko, and becoming the new ruler of the castle. The option with the Path of Falsehood, however, will give you the true ending. This ending has a lot more closure to the story between Yanaka and her brother, and it links back to the beginning scene with a Mogeko telling the bedtime story. This is followed by a massive plot twist that there's no way in hell I'm ever gonna spoil for anyone. Getting both endings will unlock a trailer for a sequel to Mogeko's Castle called Mogeko's Castle Gaiden, which looks pretty promising, and I'm definitely going to check it out when it comes out. You'll also be treated to a bonus room with a lot of random things to interact with. It's nothing super important, but it's definitely worth checking out just for fun.
So in the end, is Mogeko Castle a good game? Definitely. There's enough depth to the story to keep things interesting, and it might even make you come back to want to experience it all again. The visuals are all really nice, and even though there's not much to the gameplay itself, the experience overall is definitely a good one. Strangely enough, despite being an obscure as hell game, you can actually order plush toys based on Mogekos and defect Mogeko. The detail on these things are actually pretty damn good considering, so if you're like me and you like plush toys, and Mogeko's Castle are definitely worth ordering. Like Space Funeral, this game isn't very long. You could probably beat it in 2 to 3 hours, so it's the perfect little game to enjoy in a short afternoon. Out of all of the story-based RPG Maker horror games I've played, I'd definitely say that Mogeko's Castle is one of the better ones. I'd even go as far as to say that it's a lot better than Eve. It's free to download, so I'll put the link down in the description below in case you want to try it out, so... Until next time...
Hey guys, and welcome to the end card. Thank you so much for watching the episode the entire way through. I really appreciate it. If you missed the episode I made about another RPG Maker horror game called Space Funeral, you can watch that by clicking on the video on the left. Also, I made another video when I was at an anime convention where I went around interviewing people, but instead of doing a good job, I just made them feel as uncomfortable as possible, and it's pretty damn funny. So if you want to watch that, you can click on the video on the right.
What?
So, if you guys want to see some more videos by me in the future, I'd highly recommend you click that subscribe button and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the future. So, as always, take care.
There's enough depth to the story to make you come back to suck my ass. There's enough depth to the story to make you think about my dick.
But at the same time, it also reminds me of the hospitals in the Silent Hill games, as this is the one of the Bumble.